Representative Position 1. It looks like most everyone is seated, so shall we begin? We shall. I'd now like to introduce the candidates with us tonight who are running for state representative for the 8th Legislative District, Position 1. They are Philip Lemley and Brad Klippert. Shir Regev is also running for this position but is unable to attend tonight because of a prior commitment. She has sent us a statement to read, and Marilyn Perkins of the League of Women Voters has agreed to do so.
Thank you. I am obviously not Shir, and she wrote this in first person, so just kind of stream and be thinking of Shir as I read this. And I'm going to read it quickly. So if it's too quick, I made some copies. If anybody wants to pick up a copy, it's on the back table, as is other campaign material that the candidates brought. Some of them also have signs with them. If you see a candidate that you'd like to support and might want to put a sign in your yard, contact them at the end of this meeting, and they can probably arrange for that to happen. Okay. Hello, my name is Shir Regev. I want to send my regrets that I am unable to attend the forum tonight. I might add she had scheduled medical tests out of state during this week before she knew about this forum. As a political novice, one of my biggest challenges is that you don't know who I am, so let me tell you a little bit about me. I was born in Sunnyside. I grew up in Kennewick and graduated from Kamaikan and WSU. From there, I went on to devote 25% of my life to service in the United States, between being in the Peace Corps and a sailor in the United States Navy. That might be one of the reasons you don't know me. I was away and working to represent our nation and keep it strong. I want to share two stories from that time. The first one is from the Peace Corps. I was sent to work as a regional youth officer in Kunene region of Namibia. One issue that was urgent at the time was to reach out to the Himba people and discuss the need for HIV awareness and prevention education. I was able to bring together a team consisting of a doctor from the regional hospital, an anthropologist, a translator, and the local leaders of the Himba community. Together, we created the first ever HIV awareness and prevention campaign tailored specifically to the Himba. With the design for the campaign in place and with the blessing of local leaders, I managed to secure funding to take our presentation out into the region. We spent weeks traveling to remote communities, teaching about HIV and how to prevent its spread. To this day, Kunene region has one of the lowest transmission rates of HIV in all of Namibia. I am so proud of this project because we did it as a team. The second story is from my time in the Navy. This may come as a shock, but there are not many Jewish sailors. As a result, we don't normally have rabbis stationed at smaller commands. This was the case for my sea rotation. To make sure Jewish sailors had the chance to worship, I became a lay leader on board my ship. At sea, we held services in the chapel. If we were in a port which had a synagogue, I arranged for my sailors to attend service at a local shul. The problem was always around Yom Kippur. For Jews, it is an increasingly holy and significant day. I arranged for my sailors to attend services at the synagogue in Naples. That's in Italy, Naples, Italy, because it was the closest congregation with a rabbi. The first year, there was no problem arranging the time off. The second year, we had a new commanding officer. He would not allow us to travel under orders. We would have to use our leave. I fought this all the way up to the admiral level. My issue was intramural sports teams were given temporary orders all the time to play in tournaments. The CO was effectively telling me that people's ability to play a sport was more important than the ability to practice their faith. In the end, we were able to work out a solution where my guys got special liberty to attend the services. I share the first story to show my lack of elected experience is not a problem. Anybody who tells you they have all the answers lies. The job of a representative, as I see it, is to find the answers to the problems faced by our region and, working as a team with my colleagues in Olympia, implement successful solutions. I know I can do this. I've done it before. I share the second story to let you know when something is important, I know how, and I am willing to fight for it. I am asking you to give me a chance to represent you in Olympia and honor me with your vote this primary. I am a new name to you, but I was born here, I grew up here. I chose to I chose to come back to make my life here because I love Eastern Washington. With your support, we will make our community the best place it can be. Thank you for your time. Remember, she's younger.
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you, Sheer. Now we'll move on to the candidates who are here this evening. Once again, they will be addressed in the order in which they filed. Mr. Lemley and Mr. Clippert, you get... Yes, you are first. You each get 2 minutes for an opening statement, 1.5 minutes on responses, and 1.5 minutes, thank you, for closing statements. So let's begin. Mr. Philip Lemley, your opening statement, please.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and all of the things that they do and have done for the political situation in our area. I also want to thank City of Richland for providing the library venue here and City View crew back there doing the recording. I don't know all the answers, like Sheer said. I don't know all the questions either. But good evening, everyone. My name is Philip Lemley, and I'm running for the 8th Legislative District, Position 1. I want to be a legislator for every single resident, business, and municipality in the 8th District, not just a select few. I believe that the public looks at their legislators as for 24/7, 365 commitment. It should not be a 9-to-5 job, and it should not be 2 to 4 months out of the year. It should be 365 days. I believe that the legislators should have a local office and a staff. As legislators, we can divide, inflame, ignore those that we represent when we disagree. Or we can keep an open mind, respect a different opinion, look for ways to come together, and work to build a level of trust that simply does not exist anymore. We cannot do everything for everyone, but we can strive for cooperation among the decision makers to do what is best for the majority and the greater good, the people's work, an efficient government that works for everyone. When elected, I will promise that I will do everything I can to live up to all of these ideals. My record pretty well speaks for itself. I've been a Richland City Councilman for 8.5 years, nearly 9 years now. I do everything I can do every day to support this community. And if you go online, www.phillemley.com, you'll see what I do every day in the council duties. I serve on 4 state boards. I serve on the Hanford Advisory Board. I serve on various other committees in the city and the state. I'd appreciate your vote on August the 5th and August the 6th, November the 5th. I get the dates right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lemley. Mr. Brad Clippert, your opening statement, please.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you also to the League of Women Voters for making this opportunity available to us tonight. Thanks for those who are recording it. And thanks to each and every one of you who are here tonight. If you're watching on YouTube, you may not be able to see that this is a full room, and people have taken time out of their busy lives to be here. So I want to thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, our founding fathers gave to us a system of government called a republic. And in a republic, we elect leaders. And we ask those leaders to represent us in whatever level of government they are elected to, whether it's city council, county council, state representative, maybe it's Congress or beyond. And that's exactly what I try to do. That's what I love doing. I hate politics, but I love community service and leadership. And that's what I do each and every day when I serve as a law enforcement officer, when I serve as the commander of the Washington State Guard, or when I serve as a state legislator. I am a leader elected by the people of this legislative district to listen to them and to follow the principles and the values that were given to us by our founding fathers. Principles and values that you can find in our Constitution, which I hold near and dear to my heart, and which I've taken an oath to protect and to stand for. Principles and values you'll find in our Declaration of Independence, in President Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, and great speeches given by Ronald Reagan. Those are the principles and values that I've taken with me each year that I've been your state legislator, and that I'll take with me as I continue to lead in our state legislature. On Wednesday of last week, I was on a Hanford tour with other state legislators given by the Department of Energy, showing us the situation in Hanford right now. On Thursday, I was assigned as a sheriff's deputy to tour the Hanford project. Friday, I was a deputy patrolling the Columbia River. Saturday, I was the commander of the Washington State Guard working on emergency management at the Walla Walla Veterans Home. in that area. So ladies and gentlemen, community service is what I love to do. Leadership is a passion of mine. As an elected official in a republic, I seek to serve you in a leadership position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klippert. We'll now move on to the question and answers for these candidates. Mr. Lemley, you are up first. Let's begin with an audience question. How do you feel about freedom of choice concerning vaccinations? Will you fight to protect philosophical, religious, and medical exemptions to vaccines to attend public schools?
Absolutely. You know, I think that that's something that's integral to a safe school in more respects than any, to make sure that everyone that is going to school has the protection of something like that. Now, you know, there's religious beliefs that think that that is not the case in a lot of areas, but for the sake of of all of the kids that are going, I think everyone needs to be as healthy as possible, and vaccinations and things like that make that happen.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lemley. Mr. Klippert, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, and I want the audience to listen very closely to this question.
Okay. How do you feel about freedom of choice concerning vaccinations? Will you fight to protect philosophical, religious, and medical exemptions to vaccines to attend public schools?
So how do you feel about freedom of choice for vaccinations going to school? So are vaccinations important to keep our society safe? Absolutely, positively. But also we have a First Amendment that protects our religious freedom. And as I said before, I stand very strongly in support of our Constitution and our constitutional rights, especially those found in the First Amendment. So you have to take that into consideration, ladies and gentlemen. And also, as a legislator, I was invited to a meeting that was held by a PhD research scientist, and that place was packed in Seattle. And she is of the belief that some of our vaccines now are actually causing some of the diseases that our children have, such as the mental diseases that we have so many more now today than we did before. So to honor people's freedom of choice is a very important thing. To keep our schools safe and free from disease is a very important thing also. So it's pretty much a case-by-case basis, and we have to protect both our schools and our health, but we also have to protect people's constitutional rights.
Thank you very much, Mr. Klippert. You're up next on this question. We're already seeing some effects of climate change in Washington. More wildfires due to the dry conditions is one of them. Do you think the state budget for firefighting and other natural disasters like flooding is adequate? And could more be done to help prevent or mitigate them in the future?
As you heard in Senator Brown's statement read by her campaign manager, one of the things that she despises, and I think many of the rest of us voted against our general budget this year, is because of the fact there's not enough money left in the rainy day fund. Well, the rainy day fund also covers fires and other emergencies like flooding and heavy snowfall, and on and on and on. So that's why it's very, very important. Just like you and I, we have to keep money in our savings account for when the washer goes out, when the transmission goes out, when the AC goes out. We've got to have money there to meet those needs. And the same is very, very true in our state budget. We have to have enough money set aside to help put out those catastrophic wildfires when they take place in our state.
Thank you, Mr. Klippert. Mr. Lemley.
Well, obviously the situation continues to seem to get worse every year. We seem to have more and more fires. Obviously that's taken more and more money out of the state coffers for that. So there's no question that we have to provide money for that. Where you get the money, you know, does it come out of the rainy day fund? We have $1 billion in our rainy day fund now. We have $2 billion in revenue, in excess revenue. In reserves, rather. Maybe that's not excess revenue. In reserves. But 1.4 of that is the rainy day fund. Do you want to spend that all for fires? No, you can't do that, you know, because there's always subject to something else coming, some catastrophe of some sort coming up that we have to use that money for. But we cannot ignore the situation and let the place burn up without being able to do something with it. So we have to have money to support the firefighters and to put the fires out.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Lemley. You're up next again. Let's go back to an audience question. There have been proposals to set up a state bank to fund infrastructure. What is your position on a state bank in Washington State?
Well, I'm not sure what the state bank that we have. We have a fund for that, and the legislature has continued to raid that fund, and that just simply cannot happen because cities like this, small cities, depend upon that fund to fund small projects or fund projects in particular at a reduced rate. And the legislature in the past has raked that fund off to cover other expenses, and we just cannot simply let that happen anymore. Small cities need that trust fund.
Thank you, Mr. Lemley. Mr. Clippert.
We're going to save the audience some time with this question. Absolutely positively oppose the idea of a state bank in Washington State. I'll be going and talking to the credit unions in Spokane on Wednesday, and I will be happy to tell them I am in total and complete opposition to the idea of a state bank.
Can I ask why?
We already have a financial system set up in our country and in our state. We have our fantastic credit unions. We have some fantastic banks. I get together with these people on a regular basis to talk about the financial system that we need in place to make loans not only to our local jurisdictions, but also to the citizens of the state. And that's what makes this state work, not our government. It's the citizen and the businesses and the hardworking farmers and the people who get loans from those banks. That's what's important. You do not want your government in control of the banking system in Washington State. Trust me, you do not want your government in control of the banking system in Washington State.
All right, Mr. Clippert, you're up next again. Western State Hospital, which houses psychiatric patients who were there involuntarily committed, including prisoners, recently lost its federal funding of $53 million due to failing inspections, which the state will have to make up. This is part of an ongoing problem of providing mental health services. So what do you think could be done to improve the availability and the treatment of mental health services in our state?
So first of all, the question is slightly worded inaccurately. Western State Hospital lost that funding due to those inspections. We have two major psychiatric hospitals in Washington State, both Western State and Eastern State Hospital, both of which I've toured personally as a legislator. We talked about the problems that existed at Western State Hospital that needed to be overcome. One of the factors was brought up earlier, is the bureaucracy. We need more psychiatric physicians, and they're offering huge bonuses to psychiatric physicians, but because of the bureaucracy, they're just choosing other fields of medicine to go into. So there's not enough psychiatric physicians, there's not enough psychiatric nurses to meet the needs in these hospitals, and that's why they're failing. That's why Western State, one of the reasons why Western State failed their inspections. So just like I said about the state banks, the bureaucracy that exists in your state government is not helping, they're hurting. And we need to let the physicians and the nurses and the people who know how to treat these people do their job without with so much government intrusion.
Thank you, Mr. Clippert. Mr. Lemley.
Do whatever we have to do to take care of these patients. It cannot fall on the cities, it cannot fall on the police department, and it cannot fall on the hospitals here. I work in the emergency room at Cadillac Hospital every Sunday. And we have, it's not a constant thing, but we have people that come in with mental problems there. And it takes staff time away, it takes a huge amount of staff time away, it takes bed space away, it takes, police have to come and babysit with our guards have to come and babysit with these people. To do it locally is impossible, and of course the situation seems to get worse as times get worse on all of us. Is the situation going to get any easier? No. So we have to do whatever we can do from a state level to support quality mental health facilities, and adequate mental health facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Lemley. You're up again. We'll take another audience question. Can you give us your ideas on immigration reform, especially dealing with undocumented farm workers?
Well, of all the states, when I moved here, I had no clue what they did. I thought Washington State was all evergreen trees and apples. Had no clue that of all the things that you grow here. And the farmers and the industry as a rule, agriculture industry as a rule, depends upon a sustainable workforce. And that sustainable workforce, and from a field standpoint, is foreign labor. Gladly they will do it. You know, sadly, I don't believe American kids, if you pay them $20 an hour, would go out and do that, you know. So we have to have some way to supply enough farm labor to support this industry. Hanford in the past has been the chief revenue generator for the Mid-Columbia area. It's my understanding now that the agriculture and agriculture-related industry has taken over that, increased that revenue stream. It was $2 billion for Hanford, and now it's $2+ billion for the agriculture industry. So it's extremely important that we do this for our area, and it has to come, it should come, and it does come from immigrant labor. We have to figure out a way to get them in and out of here, not something where they can come and stay, but have some sort of program where they can come when we need them, when the farmer needs them, and then send them back home, and then that farmer can depend upon them coming back next year.
Thank you, Mr. Lemley. Mr. Clippert.
Thank you, ma'am. As previously stated by a previous panel, this is actually a federal government issue. It's not a state issue. However, I don't mind at all speaking on it. Immigration reform, work visas would be a great thing. If we had a streamlined way for people who have particular skills to be able to come to the United States, do a particular job for a particular amount of time, and then go back to their country that they live in, would be the best reform that I could possibly imagine that we could use. But at the same time, we are a country of laws, and we need to honor those laws. And so immigrants need to come to this nation in a legal fashion. And I totally and completely support legal immigration. So, but at the same time, the laws of the United States of America must be enforced, and we are a sovereign nation. And so it's a federal issue, but I support the efforts of those who have been given the job to protect our borders. And so I thank them for the work that they're doing, and they're simply doing the job that they're asked to do to keep our nation safe.
Thank you, Mr. Clippert. You're up first again. The McCleary decision forced the legislature to increase the spending for K-12 education. One of the concerns was for increased teacher pay. Do you feel the salaries in Washington are adequate to attract and retain the teachers that are needed here?
It's a multifaceted question. First of all, the McCleary decision didn't force the legislature to do anything. The Washington State Supreme Court made a decision, and then they shared that decision with the state of Washington. And then we, the legislature, both sides of the aisle, talked about their decision at length. And we made a decision because we write the budget. The courts don't write the budget. The governor does not write the budget. The legislature writes the budget. And in that budget, we decided to support the McCleary decision, fully support the McCleary decision. So we have done that. Is pay adequate to attract and keep teachers? I work as a school resource officer in 2 different school districts. I certified as a teacher in 1997, have a master's degree in teaching. I wanted to go into teaching because I love kids. I love kids. And a whole lot of teachers that teach school today do that for the exact same reason. They teach kids because they love kids. They don't go into teaching thinking, I'm going to make a lot of money, and that's why I'm going into teaching is to make money. They go into teaching because they love kids, and they love investing their lives in kids. We have raised the rate of pay for teachers with the McCleary decision and the money that we've put through in the general budget. And especially we started at the bottom. We increased the bottom to attract more teachers, younger teachers, rather than putting more money at the top. So we aren't perfect in it, but I think we've made great strides to help our teachers make a better wage and serve our kids, loving our kids through teaching.
Thank you, Mr. Clippert. Mr. Lemley.
Loving kids and not being able to support their families just is not right. You know, our kids depend upon the state to provide, and that was the issue with the courts, to supply adequate education. And adequate education covers a lot of area but teachers would probably be the most important part of that. You know, the facility, the school, and all, the building, and the bricks and mortar and things like that are important, but the teacher is the most important thing in that schoolroom. And what they do on a daily basis, if they cannot do it and support their own family, or if they cannot do it and not feel good about what they're doing, that's wrong. We have to do whatever we have to do to pay teachers adequately, obviously not minimum wage, you know, not $100,000 that I heard earlier. That's a little bit much maybe, but somewhere in between there, a living wage. A living wage that's a much maligned term, and what is that? You know, it's different for different people. But if you have to do two jobs to maintain your family, that's not a living wage. And teachers, I know in some cases, have other jobs, you know. They have to supply things for their kids, you know, that the state, for whatever the reason, doesn't supply. So it's important that we pay whatever we have to do, pay teachers to keep them happy and keep the kids educated.
Thank you, Mr. Lemley. And now it's time for closing statements. You get 1.5 minutes.
Me?
You're up first.
Status quo is the act of keeping things as they presently are. Maintaining a status quo can be seen by some as resistant to progress. We have an opportunity to change the status quo of 8th District politics in August, of course, and then in November. Politicians, our political position should not be a job for life. New blood, new work ethic, new ideas, an open mind about all things can develop a government that truly works for everyone. There are many difficult issues that face our state. Narrowly focusing a legislator's efforts on personal agendas, not being able to or not being willing to work for the common good, at the end of the day, not able to change for any reason, cannot build or maintain that government that does work for everyone, is efficient and sustainable. I will not be that type of legislator. I will represent everyone equally and everything equally. Please vote for Phil Lemley on August the 7th and November the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Lemley. Mr. Clippert, closing statement.
Thank you, ma'am. In my closing statement, we're going to make a comparison of two teams. Because we in the 8th Legislative District are a team. We live together, we work together. We're a team for each other. The two teams are two Pac-12 teams who played in the National College Series, World Series Championship. One of the Pac-12 teams, it was the 9th inning. I think that they were down 14-5. They had 3 outs left. They played the coach put in some of the guys who weren't starters. And teams and guys in the dugout, the camera went to them, they were consoling each other. They weren't cheering on their fellow players. They were consoling each other when they could have stood there and fought back, and they could have had one of the greatest victories, comeback victories of all time. But instead of doing that, fighting for a win, they were consoling each other in their loss when they still had 3 outs left. The other Pac-12 team, it was the last batter of the last inning of the second game. The other team had already won the first game decidedly. This team had 1 out, 1 strike left. The gentleman hit the ball. It was a foul ball. 3 players ran to get that ball on the right side of the field, right field side by first base. It fell between 3 players. Any one of those 3 could have caught it. Now he's got another chance. That young man cracked a home run. The next player up to bat got on base, and then another player got up and hit that person home. So they won and tied the series 1 game apiece. The next game they decidedly won and were declared the national champions. They fought back against all odds. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do the same with the 8th Legislative District. We're going to innovate, we're going to research, we're going to develop, we're going to work hard, create, and diversify. And we're going to be winners in the 8th Legislative District like we've never been before.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clippert. And thank you both for being here tonight. And don't forget about Shir Regev. We appreciate her providing a statement. At this point, we're going to take a break, but let's do a quick round of applause for these two.